Okay, so while she's figuring that slide out, as an introduction, as I said, I teach 7th and 8th grade math. I co-teach this, so in a mainstream classroom with clustered ELs, and most of them are levels 3 to 5, although in my 7th grade class I am dealing with levels 1 in that, along with the 4s and 5s. So how to approach word problems in 8th grade is what I'm going to show you, what I've been doing with some of my 8th graders. The first thing that I figured out is just to make it kind of a strategy, a simple 3-step strategy in how to make sense of the word problem that they're faced with. Just all too often students were doing the same thing in the video. They just looked for 2 numbers, added them up, and gave me an answer. So I started by just asking the first question, who or what is this problem about? After they could identify that, we went to what information am I given? Or what is happening here? How is it happening? And the third question to ask is, so what am I being asked to solve? Okay, so we can move to an example question I have. This is a typical 8th grade question for in linear, beginning linear algebraic equations. So I'm going to read the sample problem and show you how to deconstruct it. Ellen has 4 professional soccer player autographs. She gets 1 more for every game she attends. Write an equation for the relationship between the number of games she has attended, x, and the number of autographs she has, y. So the first question to ask students is, so who or what is this problem about? And we go to the beginning. Sure, you can switch slides. Okay. So this slide I've just color-coded. As I'm asking the question of the student, we go back to the text and find really what are the answers. So who or what is this problem about? We can see in the very first sentence, this problem is about Ellen and soccer player autographs. So we've established that. The next question is, what information am I given? Or what is happening and how is it happening? So we go back to the text, and we see in blue now, she gets 1 more for every game she attends. Those are the details of the information that we're given. So now we know it's Ellen and autographs, and she's getting 1 for every game she attends. She also has 4 to begin with. I forgot to mention that early in the first sentence. She has 4, and she gets 1 more for every game she attends. And the third question, so what am I asked to do? That's kind of the math question. What am I asked to do? Well, at the end of the question or the problem, it says, write an equation for the relationship between the number of games she has attended, x, and the number of autographs she has, y. So they go back and have read this. Now they know that they are to write an equation for this relationship between these 2 entities. Now, what I want to just point out, oftentimes what I've seen in math problems, questions or what the student has to find out or is asked to do is not always really clear. We're not always using those interrogatives, how much, how many. It sometimes is disguised in an imperative style question. So that's another thing to just begin to show the students that the questions sometimes are being asked as a command. So write an equation is the what they recognize as that's what they have to do next. So here's another way to scaffold this for lower level language proficiency students. Just a simple graph, and now that I think about it, maybe I should add a couple of extra blocks. After seeing Steve's suggestions, you might at the bottom have a couple of blank spaces as well to see if students come up with more than I'm expecting. But anyway, again, we just have in one box, who or what is the problem about, very clearly, and they can fill it in with Ellen, soccer player autographs. Second question, what is happening and how is it happening? We fill that in with our details. Ellen has 4. She gets 1 at every game she attends. And finally, so what am I asked to do? And then they figure out, or write down, I need to write an equation, find the relationship between number of games and autographs. Okay, so another sort of SFL-ish way to look at math problems is to take a look at how they're organized. And so things that have popped out for me in working with these kinds of problems, the details, the details that are really kind of the important parts that students tend to miss or maybe not understand come in the form of adverbials and adjectivals. They're kind of describing what's happening, describing the verbs, describing the nouns. And so to understand this question, you really need to know, what does for every mean, or what does each mean? There's other words like constant rate. When we're talking about linear equations, that's a common one. Those things, if you don't understand that they're describing what's happening in this question, you're losing information. And then again, another language kind of function is comparative language, looking at, when you're looking at linear relationships in 8th grade, the comparative language. So when they see the structure, relationship between blank and blank, that's kind of their way of saying, okay, now I have 2 different things I'm going to compare, and it helps them identify what those things are. So understanding these functions just helps guide the student to their final strategy toward how to solve the problem. But it really was helpful for them to just stop and get clear, what the problem is about, and what's happening within the problem. And so once they can just step back and reread carefully and identifying those kinds of, in SFL language we'd say like the participants in this problem, the who and the what's happening, and the circumstances, how is it happening, and finally what to do in the end. Okay, is there another slide? Is that the end?
Yeah.
Okay, just my summary slide, I guess. Helping students find ways to solve word problems. And this was just letting you know where I took my examples from, so from the 8th grade curriculum. And
So if you really want to practice your math,
yeah, you can go in here.
You can make meaning out of this.
Right, exactly, make meaning out of this. Well, there are some of the language targets that I draw from, so we're working with the math learning targets, and then I drew out language targets. So what those had to do with were, I can identify participants in a situation using terms for every, each, constant rate, relationship between blank and blank. So that's all for